he said, Jared's like a brother to me. He's a friend who became a brother. And I love him. I honor him for what he's doing with you guys here. I have a really easy job. I just take what Jared prepared, and then the journey is just, that's why it's so amazing. I love you guys. It's like my family. We've grown from a year to from 6 to 8, so I think we had 22, 23. So it's been a good journey, hence the name Journey. So with the whole Bishop having us read Acts and going into that, I've kind of stumbled across this word. We're going over the first church, the first set of Christians and their faith and how they acted and how they walked. You got me to thinking how it all started. And so we're 2,000 years later, I assume. I don't really know exactly. I'm not a historian, but I know it's been a long time. So we're reading stories about all these people. But for those who have questions, this is real, this is where I'm starting from. I don't really have a title, so I guess I just named it whatever. And so my title is Who Me? When someone says, hey man, you're so awesome, you go, who me? So who me? That's what it is. First question, does God exist? Right? Does God exist? We're going to try and just build it from scratch. So, a little background. I graduated from University of Texas in 2006. Thank you. Graduated biology degree, Bachelor of Arts. And so I'm going to try and touch base on a little bit of knowledge that I was supposed to learn. And so they try and teach you the history of life, right? It goes in, they have I think two of the main ones are the Big Bang Theory, and then it's what's called the primordial soup. They're kind of essentially the same. One just happens in water, which is the soup version, and one is in the atmosphere, heat, pressure, gases, everything, and just combustion, and the first set of amino acids occur. And amino acids are the building blocks of life. They're what amino acids put together create protein. I'm not going to try and bore you guys. I'm going to speed through this real quick. Protein's what creates your eye color. You got enough protein together, it creates your muscles, and it creates everything. We're the building blocks of amino acids. So science says that everything was in line. The right temperature, the right amount of gases, the right amount of everything. And just spontaneously, for whatever reason, lightning struck, and that was the energy needed to create these gases into what's started life. And then those over time, developed the first form of life, which is kind of what an amoeba would be like. That's like the founding father, if you will, of life. And then it goes on to say that over, I think, 3 billion years or 8 billion years, that life then evolved into 6 kingdoms, which is your animal kingdom, plant kingdom, protista, bacteria, archaea bacteria, I think I'm missing one. Fungus is the last one. And out of that, I think it's 8.7 million species. 8.7 million species are supposed to derive from this amoeba. That's plants, birds, alligators, animals. And I got to thinking, that takes a lot of faith to believe in. And so what does the Bible say? Psalms 19:1 says, the heavens declare the glory of God, and the sky above proclaims his handiwork. Psalms 139 says, for you formed my inward parts. You knitted me together in my mother's womb. I praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works, and my soul knows it very well. My frame was not hidden from you when I was being made in secret, intricately woven in the depths of the earth. Your eyes saw my unformed substance. In your book were written every one of them, the days that were formed for me, when as yet there was none of them. Life is, as I was going through school, each class, I grew more and more mesmerized by the imagination of God. Heaven declares the glory of God. Science, whether they try and convince you that it came from this primordial soup, it's silly. Because as I went through college, as I went through classes, I learned how very intricate our body is, our organ systems, how we sustain this life. How many of you deliberately counted how many breaths you made yourself breathe today? You didn't. Your body does. We have a brain, a nervous system, our respiratory system. Everything is so intricately connected. It declares of an intelligent design, is what some people say in high school, college. It's not by chance, but there's purpose in everything. I could go into detail about structure and function and how everything has a certain shape and size because it matches with the exact thing that it's needed to create a reaction. And there's so many things I can go, but that's going to be kind of boring, so I'll skip over it. But does God exist? Well, David says the heavens declare your glory. It's easier for me to have faith and believe that everything that we see today was on purpose. It was created by God, by His Word, by His imagination. And to believe that 8.7 million species originated from some flash man, some soup kitchen.
Come on.
I don't know, it's kind of silly. So God does exist. So if He exists, who is He? What is He like? Does He look like something? Psalms 103, it says, "The Lord is merciful and gracious, slow to anger and abounding in steadfast love. He will not always chide," which means like to chastise or rebuke, "nor will He keep His anger forever. He does not deal with us according to our sins, nor repay us according to our iniquities." So it kind of describes His character. He's merciful, He's kind, He's forgiving, He's loving. See, God, He loves us so much that even though through our mistakes, and even through the fall, when Adam and Eve they fell, and we're here today because of that. We struggle today because of that. He didn't hold us to our sins. He didn't repay us for that. But instead, He loved us so much, He did everything He could to make sure that He could have a relationship with you.
Yeah.
Isaiah says that it talks about how God, the Father, through His plan to reconcile Himself with His sons and daughters, became a man and died a death that was unwarranted for our sins, for our sake, so we could live in the work that He completed. And it says, "Unto us a child is born, to us a son is given, and the government shall be on His shoulders. And His name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. Of the increase of His government and of His peace there will be no end. Unto us a child is given, unto us a child is born." It said you should call Him Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. So the God who created heaven and earth, the Everlasting Father, became the Son of Man, became the Son of Peace, Prince of Peace, became our salvation. And then in Revelation it talks about what His appearance looks like.
Yeah.
So we'll see what that says. So what does He look like? Revelation 1:14. "The hairs of His head were white like wool, like snow. His eyes were like a flame of fire. His feet were like burnished bronze, refined in a furnace. And His voice was like the roar of many waters. In His right hand He held 7 stars, and from His mouth came a sharp two-edged sword. And His face was like the sun shining in full strength. And when I saw him, this is John, it says, I fell at his feet as though dead. But he laid his right hand on me and said, fear not, for I am the first and the last and the living one. I died, and behold, I am alive forevermore. And I have the keys to death and Hades. So we establish God exists. We establish some of his traits, some of his characteristics. We establish what he might look like. So he went over how he's slow to anger and abounding in love and sweet and kind and gentle. To fire in his eyes.
Yeah.
To a voice that's furious, that's like the sound of many waters. A sword coming out like a two-edged sword. So this loving, peaceful God is glorious and mighty and so awe-striking that John falls down so scared and trembling because of his majesty, because of his glory.
Yeah.
Well, then who am I? Who am I? David says, when I look at your heavens in Psalms 8, the work of your fingers, the moon and the stars which you have set in place, what is man that you are mindful of him? And the Son of Man that you care for him? Yet you have made him a little lower than the heavenly beings and crowned him with the glory and honor. You have given him dominion over the works of your hands. You put all things under his feet. Creation says that everything was created in 6 days, and the seventh day God rested. Day 1, it talks about the morning and the evening. Day 2, God creates the skies, the heavens. Day 3, the lands and the sea. The next day, day 4, the sun, the moon, and the stars. And day 5, sea creatures and sky creatures, birds and fish. Day 6, he creates land animals and man. Out of the dust, he created us. And he breathed his life within us. The purpose of this is to track how, yes, we know God exists, and we know some of his characters and some of his traits, and we have a description of his glory and what he looks like. And the purpose of this is, in order to know who we are, we got to know where we come from.
That's good. Yeah.
Genesis 1:26, when God's going over creation and he's creating man, he says this in verse 26, and God said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness. Verse 27 says, God created man in his own image, and in the image of God created he him, male and female. We were created in an image and a likeness of God. And I just went over some characteristics of that. Patience, kindness, loving, abounding in love, forgiving. And I also went over fire in his eyes. His voice like the sound of many waters. Team Destiny, you guys are what, 7th grade, 8th grade started? 6th? So I am 29 years old, turned 29 April 30th, last month.
Oh.
I got 2 twins on the way, 2 beautiful girls about to just change my world. I'm so excited about it. But when I was your age, I wish I knew who I was.
Yeah.
Come on.
I'll say that again. When I was your age, I wish I knew who I was. See, when I was a junior, I think it was either the beginning of my junior or the end or the middle is when I started coming to Promised Land like faithfully. I made a decision that I would start coming here for me, not because I was forced to or I was drugged here, because I wanted to. And it was up until my sophomore year in college where I made a few wrong choices, and it led to me feeling very ashamed of what I'd done. And I brought condemnation on myself, and it got to the point where I was so hard on myself that I couldn't forgive myself, that I couldn't come to terms of coming into the house of God where I would see the people that I loved and I cared about and just wondering about what might be going through their heads. And I definitely knew what was going on in my head, and it was heaviness. And that's not God. We make mistakes, we all fall short of the glory of God. But it's a righteous man who will rise up.
Yeah.
So we're all going to fall. But I didn't realize that at the time. So for the next 3 years, I believe, maybe 4, I just stayed away. And it was during that time, not only did I stay away from the church, but I tried to make it an effort to stay away from Christians. And when I mean Christians, I mean real Christians. Christians that love you and not try and persecute you and throw rocks. So Christians that would just try and love you enough past your mistakes and build you up and carry you and comfort you. The reason why I did that, because every time I was around somebody who had Christ in them, it destroyed me. It broke me. Because it reminded me of that love that I felt. It reminded me of that place that I belonged to. But at that time, I was so heavy on myself with self-guilt and self-condemnation, self-destruction, where I was like, I can't believe you did that. Look where you were and look where you're at now. And it was these lies that kept me from receiving forgiveness that God had already given me. I couldn't forgive myself.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Good.
And my sister, I think I was staying with her at the time, I'm not sure. But I would have conversations with her quite often. And she would talk about God, like all the time. And, at lunch, at breakfast, she would talk about God, and I'd pretend like I'm listening, and I try to ignore her, because I didn't really want to hear it. But there was one time, I don't know if she deliberately had a mindset to do this, or if it was something that she just brought up by chance, but we were talking about God, as she always does. And it was a moment where she began to talk about the goodness of God and about His love. And it was through her words and her heartfelt words and just her sharing that it reminded me of what God has done for me. It reminded me of who God said I was. It reminded me of the love that I deserved and the life that I was called to. And it broke me. And it was through that love that she shared that it gave me the courage to look myself in the face and forgive myself. And just get over my pride, I guess, because I guess I was more concerned about what people thought of me because of my past. That I'd much rather avoid that and suffer than run to His open arms and receive what I've been longing for. And so that's what I'm doing today. I'm returning the favor. I'm here to remind you who you are. And
Come
God
on.
has done for you. You are a child of God. You were formed and you were created with a purpose. Created in His image, created in His likeness. You are great. You are glorious. You are wonderful. And know your worth. Worth can be defined, like if you look up economics, worth is defined by 2 things. I Googled it, so I know. It's the market value, or it's the value that the consumer or the buyer places on something. The market is everywhere, the marketplace, our world, our society. It tells you you're worth only so much.
Yeah.
And sometimes it tells you you're not even worth enough.
Come on.
But as we were reading, God, the creator of heaven and earth, in all his majesty and all his glory, created sons and daughters who rebelled and who fell over and over and over again, and who hurt him over and over and over again. This same God found it worth it to come as a child. Unto us a son is given, unto us a child is born. Live this life in this flesh and die a death of shame, undeservingly, so that he could die and be raised again in 3 days, and give us his Spirit, and so that he could be with us every step of the way. He could live within us and remind us of our true worth. I'll be closing, so if the band, I don't know if you have a song after this, but I'll be closing here shortly. So if you want to make your way up here. So if God would give everything because of you, how amazing is your value? How amazing is your worth? So when you think of yourself, you say, that doesn't sound like me. It doesn't sound like I'm that amazing. Remember the title is Who Me?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, you.
Wow, that's good, Rick.
When I look out here, I see sons and daughters. I see faces. I see treasure in every single one of you. And I want to remind you, you look like your father.
Oh, come
Yeah.
on.
You have fire in your eyes. There's immense worth within you.
Wow.
And I have 2 daughters on the way, and I'm going to remind you every day what I'm reminding you. Know who you are. Know where you come from. Know in whose image you were created in. And don't settle for anything less.
Amen. Yes.
Be everything that he's called you to be, and be more. When the world says you're not enough, read the scriptures. You are plenty. I love you guys. Be blessed. That's all I have.